So you just bought a small boat and you want to start building that thing. You might want to hang on a second. You ready to run a gun? It's time for blast off. Let's go. Hey guys, Todd here with you. Welcome back to Bassin 101. So you bought a small boat, like a kayak, a canoe, a john boat. I'm not talking about actually going out and buying a bass boat or going out and buying a fully rigged aluminum boat. I'm talking about the boats that everybody loves, john boats especially, but the canoes and the kayaks. You want to build these things and make them into your own fishing vessel. Well, let me let you in on a little secret. You might want to take those out and fish out of them first before you do anything to them. I know some buddies of mine over the years that have built boats and everything, and they got in over their heads, or they made it to where it just doesn't quite work well for them, or just anything you could possibly think of that's a negative. And a lot of times these guys were rushing into it and just they got the boat. All right, let's go ahead and build it, this, that, and the other. Now I do understand that if you have a john boat, say a 12, 14, 16 footer that you want to build, that it's kind of hard to get it out on the water until you build it. My advice to you is to go ahead and install the seats where you want them to be at, and go ahead and sit in them and get a feel for how everything is laid out. How far is your front bow? How far are the sides to you? How far is the middle console if you have one, or the middle bench seat type thing? If you're in the back, how far does the stern sit from your seat? Get all these different layouts and figure out what you want to do, because reaching is huge when it comes to something like that. With my john boat, I'm doing it Doug Hannon style, and I'm controlling everything I want from the front. Now I do have an emergency plug system where if my motor controls overheat, I can remove them from the circuit instantly by unplugging them, plugging in trolling motor raw, and just using it like it is to get me back to the dock. That's something that you need to think of right there. As far as where I want to place my graphs, tackle, my rod storage, all that stuff, a lot of that's better from sitting in the boat and then just kind of moving the seat around and seeing how hard it is to reach behind you or beside you. That's what you want to really key on, is where everything is in your reach. When it comes to a canoe, you have to remember that canoes are not the most stable things. So what I did on my canoe is I put a stabilizer on it. Actually, I installed those not long after I took it out a couple of times, but I did take the canoe out 3 or 4 times to get a feel, to paddle it and everything else, and get a feel of the stability of it, what I need to do with stabilizers, how I want to arrange my graph system, how I want to arrange the trolling motor setup, the box that controls the trolling motor. Everything had to be placed exactly where I wanted it. The only drawback to the canoe is that I was in a hurry to get everything wired up and everything, and I didn't really think everything through exactly. I did to go back and change a couple of things, but it was minimum. But one of the things that I did not care for too much was the rod rack I had behind me. It was really hard to turn in that seat and put the rods back where they're supposed to go. As far as loading it to get the water, that was easy because I'm standing on the ground. I can put all my rods in there. The rod rack that I designed is bulletproof. It ain't going nowhere. But sometimes, for me, it was just because my shoulders were bad, it was just hard for me to turn around and reach back here and get something without it being a pain in the butt. So that's something that I'm definitely not going to be doing on the john boat. I'm going to lay it out a lot more simpler. When it came to my kayak, I fished out of it for, a year or two before I started making adjustments to it and modifications to it. But honestly, the kayak I kept pretty much stock. I really didn't do a whole lot to it. There was no graph, there was none of that stuff. But I did do a few little modifications to it here and there. Put a rod rack in it, extra rod holders in the back, which those were easier to work with because you just had holes to put them in. So that wasn't too bad. But the kayak, you can build a kayak the way you want, like a little mini bass boat, but you only have but so much room depending on what size kayak you get. And remember, the longer the kayak, the harder it's going to be to steer if you're trying to do different things with it. So I had a 10-footer, and that worked perfectly for me. And I had that for, oh gosh, 8 years. And I did quite a lot of videos out of that kayak that I have on this channel. But the number one thing that you need to keep in mind when you want to build a small watercraft like that and really make it your own is take your time. Get a piece of paper, draw it out, and say, I would like to have this here, this here, this here, this here, whatever, and sit in it and then look and see how that layout's going to react to you. Because if you make things hard to get to or kind of hard to work with or whatever, you're not going to have a lot of fun on the water. So take your time, think things through, and when you get an idea and you look at a particular product that you want to look into, sit on it for a week or so and see if your mind doesn't change. One thing I've learned on the John boat, that you guys saw me make that back lid for it, I left a slot in the front for the seat bench, or the seat bench mount that screwed into it that I did a video on here. That's eliminated. I'm going to actually screw the seat. I've got the threaded rivets, and I'm going to put those in the actual seat part, screw it down, and then mount the seat to it. So the actual clamp is done away with. So I had to make a plate to cover that lid. You know, something I changed my mind on. Well, did I jump into it? No. But what happened was I just happened to be looking into something on Amazon, and I just ran across this kit that was a threaded rod deal. I was like, what is this? And I looked into it, and they're pop rivets that are threaded, and you can just run a 1/4x20 screw in it and be done. I'm like, I could have made the lid solid for behind me, but those things happen. If I didn't show it to you, as far as the lid, if I didn't show you to you what I did, you probably wouldn't even catch it. But patience, guys. Be very patient. Don't get in a hurry. I got in a hurry with the canoe to do a few things on it, and I ended up going back and fixing a few things and changing a few things. So be very careful with that. And if you do make a modification to it, do it temporarily. See if your mind's going to change. See if you're going to stick with that idea. Because if you do, then go ahead and mount it. But if you see something where I would like to have this, but sometimes things just don't work out like that. Like me personally, I would love to have my vintage Eagle flasher unit installed in my John boat along with my brand new graph system, just to have an actual real-time flasher showing me the depth as I'm running around. One drawback is you got so many people now that have video games, and you've got all this other stuff, all this other noise out there on the water from all these different units and stuff like that, that the old Eagle Silent 60s like that are a little bit noisy. They weren't back in the day, but they are now. So personally, I'm just going to leave mine off the boat. Still would love to have it on there. But again, be patient, guys. Take your time. Draw everything out. Figure out electronically what you want to put in there. And then hold off on that, because you might change your mind. You might want to mount it somewhere else in the boat instead of where you really wanted to do it. So again, take your time, whether it's a kayak, a canoe, or a John boat. Take your time and do it right the first time, and you'll be a lot happier for that. So until next time, guys, remember, new techniques are trendy, but bass never change. May the Father bless you and keep you in Yeshua's name, and as always, fish on.